What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of This Week in Sports. It is your boy. It is Romeo Sharp here. Happy Taco Tuesday, everyone. We, as in me and Noah, are going to go to his favorite spot for tacos, which is Del Taco, y'all. He loves Del Taco, either Del Taco or Taco Bell. Those are his spots right there, y'all. Yeah, that's kind of insane. But, we are going to go get some Del Taco today. Taco Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys have been having a great week as well. We got a lot to talk about today, but before I talk about any sports, I know you guys see the new jacket that I got. It just came in yesterday. It's custom made, so no, it's not officially anything related to Nike. So Nike, please don't come for them. I'm gonna leave their name anonymous, so I'm gonna gatekeep that for a second. But I was overall like, I don't know. I'm sure you guys are aware, and if you're not, I'm a big, huge anime guy. I have a huge anime tattoo on my left side anyway, so I got Aaron Yeager from Attack on Titan. One Piece is probably one of my favorite animes of all time. I've watched a lot of anime, actually. I've seen probably over 50 different anime. I've seen all the big three in terms of One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. I recently watched Dragon Ball Z. I think a couple months ago I watched that, and that was really good. I was sleeping on it a little bit. Really shout out to Goku and them. But also, I don't know. I think just overall, I really enjoy, anime and stuff like that. And, my top three anime, like I said, I've watched over 50. Let me see. I have a whole watch list actually on my phone of ones that I've watched. It's not even up to date either, but I think in terms of my top three, I'm definitely going One Piece 1. I'm gonna throw Attack on Titan up there at 2. And then for 3, it's been kind of tough, but I gotta go with Death Note at 3. So those are my top 3 favorite animes of all time. Rounding out the 4, you could probably put Dragon Ball Z up there or something like that. I'm not really, I ain't gonna lie. It's a cookie cutter of a show, I believe. But I think it's kind of a simple plot in a sense. There's not much to it, just other than Goku just getting stronger every time, and just that's really about it for me. In terms of the other animes I named, like One Piece, there's so much. There's over 1,000 episodes. I am all the way caught up too, so it's way over 1,100 episodes for One Piece. And that has so much depth and so much character development in that show. A lot of world building too.
Did you watch the whole thing though?
What, for Dragon Ball Z? I watched Dragon Ball Z. I didn't watch Dragon Ball Super. I watched a couple up till Goku Black, seeing fighting Trunks, I believe it was Future Trunks, but after that kind of dropped.
Dragon Ball Z is the middle. You watch the middle first.
I did.
There's Dragon Ball. You don't have to watch Dragon Ball. There's Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Super picks up on Dragon Ball Z, and then Dragon Ball Daima adds more, and then the manga. I haven't read all of the manga, but the manga is doing some crazy shit right now that you would like because you're a One Piece fan. It kind of mirrors that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
no, I know, I get, y'all know, I think Noah really has a strong opinion for Dragon Ball. He's been telling me over and over again to watch Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff like that. But it took me a while. It took me a while to get to it because just I don't know. I do enjoy it though. Don't get me wrong. I think the villains in Dragon Ball Z 2 are really insane as well. The power scaling in it is just kind of insane though, because obviously if you put Goku in any other realm or any other anime, I think he's probably gonna, it's gonna be a devastation for any other anime out there. Maybe I don't know about One Piece though, but that's just kind of a little bit of a bias on my end. But I think Luffy could probably go toe to toe with Goku, y'all. Ooh, that's kind of crazy, right? But enough of the anime talk and all that good stuff. Like I said, you guys let me know if you guys do watch anime for 1, and then for 2, what are your top 3? Is my top 3 even valid and by any means? Just let me know down below, y'all. But let's get into some sports, y'all. Let's get into the NBA Conference Finals. It has officially has been set, y'all. So with these 4 teams, we have the opportunity for a first-time champion all across the board in terms of our superstars from all 4 teams, and then also I think for these franchises as well, I think for the Timberwolves, this would be their first time winning a championship in their franchise history, along with the Indiana Pacers. I believe OKC, they've won one as the Seattle Supersonics, so they're not. But as OKC, this would be their first time actually winning one as well. And then the Knicks, I think, when's the last time the Knicks won a championship? Was it like the early 60s, maybe? Late 60s? The 70s? Yeah, so all four of these teams, you know, they're looking to get to get to the upper echelon of, you know, just winning that NBA championship. 73, y'all. 1973. I think my dad was like 2 years old. So my dad was 2 years old. Mom wasn't even born yet. Who was a part of that 73 championship team?
It's looking like another Walt Frazier or something.
But with that though, like I said, y'all, we have, and then like I said, all these superstars as well. Tyrese Halliburton, you got, you know, Shea, you got Anthony Edwards, and also you got Jalen Brunson, whose father, Rick Brunson, also played in the NBA Conference Finals, which was last time in like what 2000 for them. So. But while Noah looks for that, let's get into this. Let's get into this Wolves versus OKC series, y'all. First off, let's look at the Timberwolves and kind of look to see how they actually got here. Since the last time we talked, I believe they were going into game 5. It was against the Golden State Warriors. But with the Timberwolves, they took care of the Warriors without Steph. In terms of the Legend Slayer and Ant's like nickname, we could put an asterisk on this series just because, again, the Warriors only had Steph for one game, so who knows what the outcome, how much would have changed if Steph actually played in this game. So we're gonna put a little asterisk on for this series, at least for Ant, and I'm sure Ant himself wishes that Steph was actually fully healthy for this opportunity to actually play him. But for the Timberwolves themselves, they're going to, this is their back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearance for them. They went last year where they lost in 5 games to Luka and the Mavs. That series, actually, Luka averaged 32 points a game. So it looks like that they had no answers for Luka and that Mavs team, who went on to lose in the NBA Finals to the Boston Celtics. In terms of like an X factor in this game, Julius Randle was balling out, y'all. He was balling out. Both him and Ant averaged over 25 points in the series. In that game 5 to close out the series for the Wolves, Julius Randle, he scored 29 points in game 5. Looking at this Timberwolves team, you can just see how gritty of a team they really are, and just seeing, you know, how they play on defense and how, you know, offensively, you know, both him and Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, they kind of complement each other in a sense on the offensive side of the ball, because, you know, if Julius is balling out, you know, it's probably due to Anthony Edwards himself, you know, playing extremely well and playing efficient and, you know, playing mistake-free basketball altogether for both of these players. You know, in terms of Anthony Edwards, he looks to make Timberwolves history in this upcoming series. He needs 9 more steals to become the all-time Wolves leader in playoff steals, you know, surpassing the Wolves legend Kevin Garnett. And also he needs 35 points to become first in playoff points for the Timberwolves, passing, again, Kevin Garnett. And they look to keep momentum going against OKC. Again, they finished it out in 5 games, so they had a little bit more rest than OKC did, so they have time to, you know, get more healthy and, you know, have Anthony Edwards be able to rest a little bit more, because going into this series, y'all, you know, looking at it, all the superstars are probably going to play 35 plus minutes, unless it's a blowout in one game. But all the superstars will be playing 35 plus minutes. You're going to see Julius on the court, not leaving the court. You're going to see Anthony Edwards staying on the court as well. You might got old man Mike Conley. He's going to come in there for a good 20-25 minutes in this game as well. As for the Warriors, though, I'm honestly glad for the Warriors. I'm glad that they did not try to rush Steph back. In terms of his injury, it was a hamstring for him too, right? Yeah. So he had the hamstring injury, and then we'll go into another player that later on in the series, or a different series, that had a similar injury. But I'm glad they didn't rush Steph back. But I don't think even with him coming back, that the Golden State Warriors were going to be able to even, you know, have a fighting chance. Maybe they might extend it to another game or so, but I honestly, overall, I didn't see them, coming back down 3-1 with Steph, just because like he probably wouldn't have been fully 100% healthy regardless if he would have came back. But the reason why they traded for this guy is because of situations like this with Steph. Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler, in these last 2 games, he did not show up. He didn't show up in game 5, and he didn't show up in game 4. He didn't, in terms of like an aggressive approach for both of these games. He shot 4 of 11 in game 5. In 42 minutes, y'all. So he only put up 11 shots in 42 minutes, while off the bench, Jonathan Kuminga, I think he put up like 23 shots. And Jonathan Kuminga was being very, very aggressive as a player. And I think just watching Jonathan Kuminga come off the bench, and just as soon as when Steph got hurt and Jonathan Kuminga came in, he kind of showed a spark. He showed some promise in the player, in himself as a player, and he probably just he kind of just gave himself kind of a bag going into the offseason, because I think is Jonathan Kuminga, I believe he's not. I think he's gonna be a free agent this offseason. I'm not too sure.
He's in a contract year for sure.
Oh, so he's in a contract year. So I think next season. Okay, so looking at this, maybe teams might have seen this. Some teams that probably weren't in the playoffs or got eliminated early in the playoffs, looking at this Golden State team and seeing Jonathan Kuminga and seeing him just kind of be on the bench and come off the bench and pop. He probably just made himself a nice little market going into his contract year for sure. And I'm sure, Steve Kerr is going to look at that as well, because I think, now this could be speculation, but I think, I think Steve Kerr and him had like kind of a falling out later, late into the regular season. Like I think in the season finale, I believe they sat Jonathan Kuminga and didn't play him a single game in the last like couple games of the season. And then I don't think he even played in the play-in. So seeing Jonathan Kuminga show off like poise and aggression in the wake of Steph Curry's injury, it definitely like I said, it definitely shows a lot for Jonathan Kuminga. And this is what we were trying to see from Jimmy Butler. Because I think with the Warriors, like in the past, when Steph gets hurt, like you see this Warriors team kind of crumble, and they seem like very stagnant on offense and don't know what the hell they're doing half the time. Don't get me started with Draymond Green. I mean, he's averaging like 6 points a game in that series, so it's like he's not doing nothing. Other than he's getting more fouls than he's scoring points at this point. So just looking at that, I'm just like, like I said, this Warriors team this year, it seemed like they thought Jimmy Butler would show. The Jimmy Butler that played for the Miami Heat, that Jimmy Butler that led them to 2 finals appearances, they were looking for that Jimmy Butler to, pop off in the playoffs with Steph being absent in this game. And again, Jimmy Butler just didn't really show much in these last 2 games. And then game 4, like he was no better in game 4. He shot 5 for 9, y'all. 9 shot attempts up, really, in 34 minutes. I think they got blown out that game though, so I think that's probably they probably just kind of like waved the white flag in a sense. But like I said, 9 shot attempts is not going to cut it in for this team. They need Jimmy Butler to play. Like, I mean, granted, when Jimmy Butler did get traded, they had a really good record when he got traded. I think they went 26-11 or something around that realm. I mean, their defensive rating, I think they were number 1 all across the board since the trade with Jimmy Butler. So the Warriors, he played well in the regular season, but it just seems like in game 4 and game 5 of this semifinal, he just didn't really show up for this team. Now, maybe he was dealing with an injury that we weren't aware of. I don't want to make no speculations, but he just didn't look healthy overall. And so just overall, just seeing him, struggle in game 4 and game 5, this is not the Jimmy Butler we're all used to seeing. We're all used to seeing playoff Jimmy. And I was really looking forward to, maybe seeing him. The lights are on him. Now, maybe they got too bright for him in Golden State, because Golden State, that franchise, has a lot going for them. But overall, though, the downfall of the Warriors was, if Steph gets hurt, who's next up on the list? Who's next up? And it seems every time he gets hurt, no one seems to want to step up besides Jonathan Kuminga, but no one just seems to want to step up for this team. I think Pods played pretty well in that game 5 as well. But overall, though, y'all, it just seemed like it just wasn't. They were no match for the Timberwolves in that series for the Warriors. Now for the next series, though, we have the OKC Thunder. They had a grueling, y'all, back and forth 7-game series with the Nuggets. But in Game 7, though, the Nuggets did not show up. They got beat up on by the Thunder in Game 7. The Thunder won by as many as 32 points. MVP favorite SGA had 35 points in 36 minutes. Super efficient, very super efficient night from SGA. And you know what's crazy about this series? I don't know. What you think? No, I think they waited for the series to be over to pick the MVP, because I don't think the MVP still has not been announced yet. And I'm like, me going live right now, I don't know. Noah, can you check to see if the MVP got announced yet? But MVP finals. I mean, the MVP has not been announced yet, in a sense of, between SGA and Jokic, and I think it was between those two players regardless. So maybe the NBA, and I think this is probably the latest it's been since an MVP has been announced. I mean, it usually happens between May 10th and May 15th, around that time, usually. But they still have yet to announce their MVP, and I hope they weren't waiting for this series to end to really lock up their MVP, because again, MVP is a regular season award, not necessarily a not necessarily a playoff award as well. But again, with SGA, he averaged 29.7 points in the entire series. And again, this was a 7-game series, so averaging almost 30 points a game in the 7-game series for SGA, just proves that, he's that guy. He really proves that he probably will win this MVP, not based off of this playoff series, but just overall, just showing in this game, he has what it takes to win the MVP. And then he had an offensive rating of over 130 for OKC as well. As for his MVP counterpart, Nikola Jokic, he only shot 5 of 9 in Game 7. So I'm like, you shooting a tour date in Game 7? That's not gonna cut it, buddy. That is not gonna cut it for Jokic. And I think it was largely due to OKC's bench player, role player Alex Caruso guarding him 80% of the time in Game 7. Now I seen that post on ESPN where the stat where they said he was guarding him 80% of the time, and everyone flooded the comments saying that he was, first of all, Jokic is 6'11" and Alex Caruso's like what, 6'5", 6'6", something around there. So obviously there's a height difference for sure, but I think looking over the comments, and like everyone in the comments are saying he was guarding him 80% of the time, but he was fouling him 100% of the time. And I think, and everyone was calling for Jokic should have been getting way more fouls. I think he only went to the line, I think 11, not 11 times for Jokic. He only went to the line. And so, and like I said, with Alex Caruso guarding him 80% of the time in this game, he was his plus minus off the bench was 40. So he had a plus 40 off the bench, and then I'm sure the refs just kind of wanted them to kind of play this game out. They wanted him. They wanted this Game 7 to kind of just let them, play aggressive as much as they can. I mean, are we really gonna complain about Jokic getting, playing against a 6'5", player like Alex Caruso himself? In that game though, it was just a sloppy night for Denver. I mean, they had 22 turnovers, and like I said, it was just overall, just sloppy basketball play from them. And then they let OKC dominate the paint. They outscored them 64-42 in the paint, and it's just like, you could just kind of see. I think you could kind of just see the fatigue, and I think I mentioned it last time we were here, y'all. That it just seems like the fatigue and Jokic was kind of setting in. They just got off a 7-game series with the Clippers, and then again another 7-game series with the OKC Thunder. So it's like, it's gonna hit. The wear and tear was there. In terms of wear and tear, even Aaron Gordon was dealing with a lot of wear and tear. In game what was it, Game 6? He left the Game 6 early with a hamstring injury himself. His was a grade 2 hamstring injury, and reported by Shams was looking like he wasn't going to play in Game 7. He needed like at least multiple weeks to recover from that hamstring injury. I mean, he played 24 minutes in that game, y'all. So he kind of battled it out. I commend him though. He understood the assignment. He understood what was at stake here. It's Game 7. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a dog, you're a dog. No matter what it is, you're going to go out there and you're going to try to do what's best for the team. And he thought the best option for the team was to, play in this game, because at least for the Nuggets, and I mentioned it before, their bench is not, it doesn't exist. Their bench doesn't exist. They don't play their bench as much. Like I said, the only guy they got is really Russell Westbrook on the bench. and they don't play the rest of the guys as much as Russ. So it's like, if it wasn't Aaron Gordon, I'm pretty sure they were probably going to bring Russ in, and then Russ was going to have to start majority of the game. But just overall, like, I commend him. He got 8 points and 11 rebounds in this game. So he tried his best. Again, I'm surprised he got 11 rebounds, because I think with a hamstring injury, that's not something to play with, y'all. Because so it's like, and again, it just sucks because he did it in a losing effort. Like I said, they got beat down by them. They lost by 32 points. It's probably I think it was one of the largest Game 7 losses in NBA history for sure. And then, and speaking of Game 7s, the Nuggets, they're now 0-5 in road playoff games in Game 7s in franchise history. So it just seems like on the road, Jokic and company cannot get it done in Game 7, and he couldn't close it out. But in terms of this Western Conference Finals game that is finally set, it looks like Game 1 is tonight between the Thunder and Timberwolves. And then this is going to be the first actual Western Conference Finals game featuring two teams that are not from either Texas or California since 1996. And I think those teams in 1996 was the Seattle Supersonics and the Utah Jazz. Correct me if I'm wrong, Noah. But this is kind of interesting to see. So what is it? That's like 29 years since we had a team outside of these two big those are big markets right there. So we have two small market teams against each other in the West, in the Minnesota Timberwolves and in the OKC Thunder. So but let me give y'all my prediction, and I want to hear you guys. First of all, let me hear what you guys think about this Western Conference Final series. Where do you think it's gonna go? I personally think, like, with my prediction here, OKC's been getting this excuse for the last, maybe 2-3 years. Oh, they're too young. They're too inexperienced. This, and that. But at some point, you got to grow up, right? And I feel like OKC has shown they can go to distance with any team. They have shown that the maturity and the poise and just, like, overall just confidence in a team that can really just really, like I said, go to distance with any team. They can play against the best of the best, and not falter by any means. I mean, I think they had the best record in the NBA, right? So it's like, that speaks volume in itself. So I think there was less rest for the Timberwolves as well, y'all. So I think the OKC's been resting like 2-3 days extra than the Timberwolves. But I think give me the Oklahoma City Thunder in 6 games to advance to the NBA Finals. So I really think this is Shai's year, y'all. This is Shai's year to at least touch the promised land of the NBA Finals. At least we'll see what happens later on down the line and see where I think if they could win the finals or not. But we'll wait until the series is over, obviously, y'all, because honestly, this series can go either way. You got 2 All-Stars and SGA, so it's like, it's firepower right there, y'all. So regardless, we're gonna have a really good series. I can see it going the distance in 7, but again, I think give me OKC in 6. But there's also, I think, let me give you guys, I want to hear you guys what you think the X factors for this game will be for both teams. Let me know down below in the comments. And before I get into that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please keep liking. Please keep subscribing to the channel. Leave your comments down below. Share it with your friends, share it with your grandma, share it with your uncle, share it all around with everyone around the world. And let's just keep getting those subs up. Let's try to reach 100. We're at 25 as of right now. So let's try to get to 100 subscribers. And if we get to 100 subscribers, Noah said he's going to go streaking in downtown San Diego. So if you guys want to see that, keep subscribing. Right, Noah? All right, type shit.
Let's just go on to the next segment.
But so the X factors for both teams, for the Timberwolves, I mean, it's the guy that balled out in the last series. I think it's going to be Julius Randle. Like I said, he complemented Ant's game tremendously. So I think I said Nas Reed was the X factor last series. I don't think he wasn't like beyond great, but obviously with the Timberwolves, like I feel like they're kind of by committee of a team, but also is OKC though. But like I said, I think Julius Randle, if he plays the way he played last series, I can see a lot going in the Timberwolves favor. And obviously Rudy Gobert, he needs to play lights out on defense as well. And then for OKC, I think like I said, they're by committee as well. Besides SGA and Jalen Williams, and maybe even Chet. Like, I mean, you don't know who, besides SJ, you don't know who else on the board is going to go off for this OKC team. And that's what I really like about this team, and what I like about, honestly, all four of these teams going into this playoffs. Like, you don't know who's really going to, spark for any of these teams besides, their all-star superstars on the team. But for OKC, I believe the reserves like Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace, those guys are going to be X factors for this team, especially Alex Caruso. I don't know who, and then also I think whoever's going to guard is assigned to guard Julius Randle is going to be the X factor. Or what is that? It might be Chet. Do you think it's going to be Chet? No, or maybe Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, that is. One of those two guys will probably be the guy to the guard Julius, and I think that's the X factor right there. Whoever can handle him. So like I said, we gonna really see what's gonna happen with these two teams. They play the game one is tonight, and I'm super excited to see where this game goes. And like I said, I think this is gonna probably go to distance, but overall, give me the OKC Thunder in 6 to make it to the NBA Finals. Will this be the first time since what 2012 that they made the finals? Yeah. And that's when they have KD, James Harden, Russ, three superstars right there. So it could be, I think it'll be good for OKC it'll be good for basketball if OKC makes the NBA Finals for sure. Now let's move on to our next series, y'all, which is going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. We got the Pacers versus the Knicks. In terms of the Pacers, they've been on rest for over a week, y'all. So after handling the Cavs, my boy Tyrese Halliburton, what the hell he Burton, I'm gonna keep saying that, honestly. That that's very catchy. That's really catchy for me. What the hell he Burton. He had 31 points to close out the series against the Cavs, and then the Pacer offense had 6 guys. And again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you don't know who's gonna really spark for any of these teams. But the Pacers really, define this idea of just like, you don't know who is going to be the X factor, who's going to really just go off for this team. They had 6 guys averaging double-digit points this entire series. And then Miles Turner, their defensive guru guy, he's the leader in blocks in the playoffs right now. He's almost averaging 3 blocks a game. And then in Game 5 to close out, he had 4 blocks himself. And then for Tyrese Halliburton, he had an offensive rating of 130, which that's anything over 110 is just spectacular. So he was very efficient. Tyrese Halliburton, he's one of those guards that just doesn't turn the ball over by any means. And again, he was super efficient in that series, and then also just overall in the playoffs in general for Tyrese Halliburton and this Pacers team. Again, you don't know who's gonna really go off for this team. Like I said, I really like him. I really like Miles Turner, and we'll get into the other guys as well. Now, as for the Knicks, though, the Garden, the Garden, I think for the Knicks, I believe they were doubted all playoff series, the entire postseason, y'all, they were doubted. I think every analyst, besides Stephen A. Smith, who's been, he's on a rampage right now, because I know he really, he's a huge Knicks fan himself. So besides Stephen A. Smith, I think a lot of other analysts and a lot of just NBA critiquers, they really didn't see much in the Knicks. I mean, personally, I think if I can remember, I think I even had Detroit giving them some problems in that first round. Hold on. Again, I thought Detroit were going to give them some type of issues in this first round. But for the New York Knicks, they returned to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2000. And on that team, so it's like a full circle moment. So on that Knicks team, Jalen Brunson, his dad, Rick Brunson, actually played for that team. And they played, what would you think? The Indiana Pacers in 2000. So, but they lost that series back in 2000. And I think the Pacers, who they go on to the play? No, I don't remember who they played in 2000. But in that NBA Finals, was it? It was Kobe and the Lakers, right? Yeah. So again, they lost that series, and the Pacers went on to lose to Kobe and the Lakers later on down the line. But again, for the Knicks, I think the Knicks have one of the most. I think New York in general, because how big of a market it is. They have a lot of teams, and they got a lot of enriched history with these teams. Whether it be the Knicks, for basketball, whether it be the Giants or the Jets for football, or what is it, the Rangers for NHL, or the Yankees for baseball. So like I think New York overall is just a very passionate fan base. And just looking at the New York Knicks and that series against the Celtics, before we get started, hoping for a speedy recovery for Jason Tatum, who tore his Achilles prior to Game 6, unfortunately. And I think as soon as he went down in Game 5, I think we all kind of seen, just see him going to the ground. Like it was non-contact, and just seeing him squirm around on the ground as well. Like you definitely could see, just like it did not look good by any means, y'all. So, and he's probably gonna be, it's sad to see superstars like him go down in the playoffs. Again, we had Steph go down. It's like these guys are like key guys for these teams, and like once they go down, it just seems like everything kind of just blows up. Because I think in Game 6, Jaylen Brown, he fouled out in that game. So I think he still had 24 points or something. I could be wrong. But in general, just, the Knicks just seem to be moving different that series. So I don't even think Tatum would even be enough for them. They could have probably extended it another game. But I just seen the Knicks just were too much. There's too much firepower from the Knicks. And I think this is honestly great for basketball in terms of just the New York Knicks advancing to the Eastern Conference Final. All starters for the Knicks, they averaged well over 13 points in this game. Well, hell, even Mitchell Robinson, he sort of got his act together right at the free throw line. I think he still was 14 of 31 from the free throw line, but still, he was knocking down when it mattered most for those shots. I mean, Boston had 3 guys averaging over 20 points, which is kind of, maybe a cause for concern for the New York Knicks coming into this next series. I think, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, they all had over 20 points in this game. So that may be a cause for concern again for this Knicks team that's going up against a Pacers team that just plays by committee. And like I said, whoever, kind of just whoever's going off will get majority of the minutes or whatever. So it's like I said. But let's go into my prediction of the New York Knicks versus the Indiana Pacers. But before then, I want you guys to let me know down below who you believe will come out on top in this series for the Knicks versus Pacers. Now, if we look at this, let's look at both of these teams. And I think these are polar opposite teams, I feel like. In a sense, yes, it is by committee. I feel like besides Jalen Brunson, and then obviously Cat as well, but it's kind of by committee for them. So who knows? OG could probably, pop off this series, whoever. And also for the Pacers, they're solely by committee. They play 8 guys. They play 8, 9 guys regardless. So it's you have a grinded out offense in the New York Knicks that really can just kind of, slow the game down, really, slow any type of tempo down against a team that they could probably, like I said, that they could be the kryptonite for this fast paced, bless you. Thank you. They could be a fast paced, they run up down the court team in terms of the Pacers. So it's you got polar opposite. One of these, something's gonna give, y'all, because opposites attract. So or is it opposite don't attract? I don't fucking remember. But regardless, one of these guys one of these teams, something's gonna give. In terms of the Knicks, though, in the clutch or in the fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson has 102 points in his first 10 postseason games in NBA playoff history. Now, that's the most since Kobe had 100 in 2001, in 2003, and then most recently when Curry had 99 in 2023, along with Kobe again in 2008. So that kind of speaks volume on Kobe. I'm pretty sure didn't Kobe win? So I think all those years didn't Kobe win the NBA Finals? I think he won it in 2000. Well, technically, what was it? It was 2000, 2001, right, for Kobe, and then I think he won it in 08, right, Noah? Or I could be wrong, but 9, 10. Okay, well, so yeah. It's close enough. Well, a little bit off, but still, kind of just speak volume on Kobe. Just he was a very clutch in the fourth quarter for him. So But in terms of this series, I think it really will go the distance. But after just I've been doubting the Knicks. I think every series, and I think it's time for me to shut the hell up. Like I said, I like Tyrese Halliburton. I like him a lot. But I think even Stephen A. Smith said it himself. He said Jalen Brunson is a superstar. And he believes Tyrese Halliburton really isn't a superstar. Like, he can get things done. But he doesn't carry his role for the Pacers is, I feel like, Stephen A. feels, is less than Jalen Brunson's role for the New York Knicks. So I think I got the Knicks going the distance here, and I think I got them winning in 7 games. And man, New York's gonna go insane if they make the finals. So that's like I said, that's just gonna be good for basketball. So. Now so I have some X factors here, y'all, and I want you guys to let me know down below who you guys believe are going to be the X factors for this upcoming series. The game 1 is tomorrow for the Pacers and Knicks. The Pacers got scores all on the court, like I said. But I think Andrew Nembhard. Sorry, I keep fucking up his name. Andrew Nembhard. He's my X factor for the Pacers. He's been getting tough buckets all postseasons, and he'll need to do so against a gritty and opportunistic Knicks defense. For Andrew, so I really can see him being the X factor for them. So if he plays well, I think this will really help lift the Indiana Pacers for sure. And then for the Knicks, on a defensive mindset, I can see Mikal Bridges once again being an issue, presumably against Tyrese Halliburton. I believe if he's gonna guard Tyrese Halliburton, or they could probably put both him and Jalen Brunson. They play pretty well defensively. I mean, overall, this Knicks team, they're built on that defense for sure. I think overall, though, the Knicks winning the turnover battle early will be an X factor. I think they need to make Tyrese Halliburton very, very uncomfortable early on in this series, because he rarely turns the ball over. You know what I'm saying? As a pure passer himself, like, they need to clog up those passing lanes for the New York Knicks. And like I said, he rarely turns the ball over. So I think with this series, though, y'all, I think we really need to. I like the Knicks here. I truly like the Knicks here in this series, And then basically that just rounds out into my NBA Finals prediction. I believe it's gonna be OKC versus the Knicks. I don't remember. Oh yeah. My NBA Finals prediction before the postseason even started, I believe it was. I think I said I got the Lakers and the Celtics. So yeah, overall, y'all, I think I need to stop making predictions. I think I'm cursing teams or whatever. I've been wrong on almost every single prediction in terms of teams and who's gonna play who. So it's I kind of need to take a step back and maybe reevaluate myself in terms of my predictions. So, but like I said, my NBA Finals prediction is gonna be OKC versus Knicks. If that does arise, and I'll go more into depth of how long, who wins and then how many games. But for now, that's just my prediction for right now. Let's just hope I get something right here. So, like I said, y'all, OKC versus Knicks in the NBA Finals. So moving along into the NBA, still, we're gonna shy away from the playoffs in the NBA, and we're going to something else a little bit interesting for sure. Now, Michael Jordan, y'all. It's been confirmed that he'll be becoming a contributor on NBC. Now, first of all, I think NBA's returning to NBC for the first time in because NBA was on NBC in the past, right, Noah? I don't remember what year it was. It's probably maybe the early 2000s or something, maybe even late 1990s or something along those lines. But like I said, y'all, Michael Jordan, the NBA legend, a lot of people's NBA GOAT as well. He's going to become a contributor on NBC. With that being said, it's basically he's just going to, we're going to get his opinion. We're going to get what he thinks is going to happen, or what he thinks his opinion. I think even a more raw sense of his opinion on players, on teams, coaching styles, whatever it is. I think, for NBC. And what is it? Because I think NBC is now... is going to be the main thing, because NBA on TNT, their contract kind of expired or something, right, Noah? So what is it, the guy inside the NBA crew, I think they're all disbanding basically. I think they're all going to NBC though, right, Noah? Or do you know if only like no, really? Damn, I really like those guys too. I like Chuck, I like Shaq. You know, them going back and forth, and then Kenny as well. Like just all those guys, you know, battling back and forth. You know, that was something interesting to see for sure. But I want your guys' opinion. Like, how do you think Michael Jordan is going to be coming? Like, what side of Michael Jordan are we going to get? You know, are we going to get this Charles Barkley-esque kind of critique, or like the Shaq critique, where like they're kind of just very blunt and very just like just very just raw, and just like say what's on their mind about these players, and those two players, they always got current players chiming in on what they got to say. In terms of Charles Barkley, no matter what he says, a lot of players always will talk about how he just never won a ring or whatever, this and that. Shaq's a legend, so he can whatever, but I think both of these players are all around legends. But I think do we think Michael Jordan might even take a step back? Just let me know what you guys think. And then obviously, I never really got to watch Michael Jordan play as a player. I watch highlights here and there. My dad and his side of the family, they're from Chicago, so they grew up watching Michael Jordan. I probably, as a toddler, maybe I was mindlessly watching Michael Jordan when he was on the Wizards or something. Like, so like his dad, like, before he retired. So, so maybe I probably watched him like that. But like I said, I don't remember much of watching Michael Jordan. So I think, but again, he's highly regarded as the greatest player of all time, probably one of the greatest sports icons of all time, from all around, from every like sports angle for sure. Let's see, but in terms of Michael Jordan, there's not. I realized he's not much of a talker. You don't really hear much from Michael Jordan outside when he was like what was it? I think he was he was an owner of who was he owner of, Noah?
Charlotte Hornets.
The Charlotte Hornets. And I think besides those press conferences and stuff like that, you didn't really hear Michael Jordan talk about the game of basketball in a professional setting. I feel like maybe in like intimate, like inner circle stuff like that. Maybe playing a round of golf with somebody, and with some of the other NBA legends, and maybe talking ball then. But like in a professional setting, you didn't really see it from him. But I'm for sure excited. I'm sure like he'll have a lot of really good insight and critique on today's game. I really hope he is kind of just like I kind of want him to be very blunt. I want to hear what he has to say about some of these players. And I feel like some of these players would want to hear from him anyways, regardless. They want to hear, Michael Jordan be, as honest and truthful about their game and whatever coaching styles and all that stuff. So, but as we all seen, experience, even being great at the game, it doesn't really mean you can really talk about the game. I know there's a lot of like, legends and stuff like that. A lot of former players out there that, they try to talk the game, like whether it be football, basketball, whatever, MLB, NHL, whatever, soccer. And it doesn't really pan well for them. It's just because like it's difficult. You know what I'm saying? You can be good at the game, but you can't talk the game. But we've seen a lot of great players in terms of football, basketball that really come switch over. They put the ball down and they pick up the mic. They put the ball down and pick up the mic, y'all.
So Dan Patrick said that he was talking about his role, and he said that Jordan's role is probably similar to what the late Kobe Bryant did with ESPN before he died.
Really?
Yeah, just kind of more insight on like the plays and stuff like that, not really like live.
I see. So it looks like he's gonna have a similar role to both Peyton and Eli Manning actually in the football world, because Peyton and Eli, they kind of they have obviously for Monday Night Football games. They give live reactions, so it's kind of cool. But like overall, they do kind of do the same thing that the late Kobe did, in the sense of like they just kind of give insight about plays and stuff like that. So, and then also we have Tom Brady, y'all. Tom Brady now, he's a full-on NFL commentator. Obviously, he's a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders as well. So like it kind of those two kind of don't mesh well, because there's certain things he's restricted to do since he is the Raiders owner. Plus, being a commentator, you can't be in like those meetings at all. Those pre-production meetings, you can't be in anything like that, unfortunately. But just seeing Tom Brady, I think his first game he announced, he was commentating. It was a rough start. It was a rough start for him because he just seemed very kind of robotic and stuff like that, and he just didn't seem too excited. But as he came along, like I said, he's gotten so much better as a commentator for Tom Brady. And again, that is someone we want to hear from. We want to hear from Tom Brady. We want to hear from Alexa Payne Manning. In the NBA world, we want to hear from Michael Jordan. Hell, maybe when LeBron hangs it all up, we want to hear from LeBron and what he has to say. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we want to hear from LeBron, So I think we kind of hear enough of LeBron because he hops on every single podcast known to man. And, he gives pretty good insight, I feel like, but I think he has a lot of basketball IQ himself, and obviously Michael Jordan has a lot of basketball IQ, so you're gonna see these, like a guy like him, Michael Jordan. I'm super, like I said, excited for this upcoming NBA season. This, kind of hear what he has to say, and then I can learn more at least about the game, from someone like him, who's, like I said, highly regarded as the greatest of all time. So like I said, y'all, let me know down below how you feel about Michael Jordan being a contributor for NBC. How do you feel about NBC taking over NBA again? And if you guys are gonna miss the inside the NBA crew for sure. Like I know I am for sure. So, and some more NBA daunting news. So we had the NBA draft lottery. I think it was like last week, actually, last Tuesday. We had the NBA draft lottery. And my biggest question for you guys, and I'm going to give my opinion on it, but do you think the NBA draft lottery is rigged, or overall do you think the NBA is rigged for views? So I want you guys to let me know down below. Now, the reason I say this, though, is because the Mavericks, they were awarded the #1 overall pick in this year's draft. Kind of interesting, don't you think? Kind of coincidence, don't you think? I kind of think so. I mean, they had only a 1.8% chance of winning the #1 overall pick in this lottery. Obviously, if you guys, I'm sure it's one of the biggest trades in NBA history for sure. They traded Luka before the trade deadline as well. And just looking at this, let's look at some of the other things that kind of speculate, that kind of really feed into the narrative that the NBA draft lottery is rigged, because we see a lot of top talent get shipped from teams that have won the lottery. So let's kind of look down this list. So in 2010, when LeBron James left the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cavaliers had a 2.8% chance of getting the #1 overall pick. They won it, and they got Kyrie Irving. So we're looking at that. 2011, CP3, he got traded from the Pelicans to the Clippers. The Pelicans, this was a high chance for them, so they had a 13.7% chance of winning the NBA lottery for the #1 pick, and they won it, and they got Anthony Davis. In 2019, the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis to the Lakers, where the Pelicans had a 6% chance of winning the #1 overall pick, and they got Zion Williams that year. So, and then obviously look at this year. I mean, the Mavs actually won their original spot off a coin flip versus the Bulls, because they both had a similar record. I think they were like 39 and 43 or something like that. Yeah, 39 and 43 or something. I think my math is on. No, actually my math is right. Yeah, 39 and 43, both the Bulls and the Mavs. And I think, what is it? I think the Bulls winning their playing game kind of screwed everything over. And I think it was only like a 0.1% chance of a swing in terms of the Bulls and the Mavs. So I think if the Bulls would have won that coin flip, they probably would have had the #1 overall pick. But who knows? Maybe, like I said, maybe it's in terms of ratings, you want the Mavs to win that pick, and then you want them to get, a superstar to even, boost the ratings. You had teams like Utah and Washington that had the first and second worst record in the NBA last season, and they both only got the 5th and 6th overall pick, and then also Charlotte as well, the Hornets. And all three of those teams, they had over a 14% chance of winning the #1 overall pick, and not one of those three teams got it. Not one of the three teams, and I think none of them even. They were all like top 7, I believe it was top 4, top 7. So it's like, they didn't even get a top 5, a top 3 pick. None of those teams. So just seeing that, it's just really kind of, it's just weird to me, because at the same time, I think Dallas is a bigger market than these other 3 teams, and I think that also plays a part, y'all. And this is why I think it is rigged, because you got the big market teams, or that either you have you're a big market team or you just shipped off a superstar. Those are the two factors that really play into, you winning the NBA lottery. So, and I think the NFL was thinking, and I think there's been speculations, there's been chatter around the NFL world, even with Roger Goodell even saying that he's maybe thinking about implementing the lottery. And I say hell no to this, because you got teams like, the best teams in the NFL, if they have even a slither of a chance to get that number 1 overall pick and they get it, that's gonna ruin the game of the NFL, I believe. So what's next for Dallas, y'all? For the Dallas Mavericks, there's been speculation that they could trade the pick for a proven superstar, as Nico Harrison, he stated that he's kind of in a win now mode with Anthony Davis and Kyrie. I feel like they need to get like another superstar to really just to compete in the West. But it looks as though they're going to keep their pick and they're going to select Cooper Flag with that number 1 overall pick, which by all means that is perfectly fine as well. I think Cooper Flag is going to be the future for the Dallas Mavericks. He's going to really complement Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving for sure, and that trio of those three is going to be a sight to see for sure. But I want you guys to let me know what you guys think. Do you think what's going to happen for the Dallas Mavericks in their future? What's going to happen for, do you think the NBA draft lottery is rigged? Do you think the NFL is going to probably implement something like this? Like I said, let me know in the comments down below, y'all. Speaking of the NFL, we're gonna ship away from basketball, and we're gonna go to what I really enjoy is the NFL. So the NFL schedule was also released last week, and I just kind of want to look at it, and I want to look at it from a broader, scope, and kind of look at some of these games. My first thing I want to look at is the international games. Now we have it's crazy, y'all. It's crazy to see how widespread the NFL has been. We have a lot of international games this year. I remember from like maybe even less than 5 years ago, they were only having international games maybe twice a year, and now we have a plethora of international games, and it used to only be in the UK or in England, and now we have games from to Brazil. We got in Germany. We got in Madrid. Like we got it all over the place. So let's look at some of these international games. So the first game of the year, or at least international game, we got the Chiefs versus Chargers. It's going to be in Brazil. We got the Vikings versus Steelers in Dublin, Ireland in week 4. And then the Vikings, this is the first time in NFL history, I believe it is, for a team to go back-to-back weeks in a different country to play in the NFL regular season. So the Vikings, they go back. Looking at this, y'all, I'm like, damn, that must suck for like the Vikings, players' families and stuff like that. That's a long way away from your family and stuff like that. I don't know how they're gonna even do this. Are they gonna travel back to Minnesota and then travel to London to face off the Browns in week 5? I don't know how they're gonna do that, but or they're gonna just travel from Ireland to London to face them. So I don't know. And then my Denver Broncos, they're playing out in London again in week 6 against the New York Jets. I think the Jags should just honestly move to London, because they always got a game in London. I'm sure, maybe it's because their fan base is predominantly probably from London. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, because it's in Florida, so it's it's kind of, I guess you can say, the closest thing to London. So in that sense, so the Rams are going to play the Jags in London in week 7. Now, I think this might be the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but I think we're having a game in Berlin, Germany for the first time in NFL history, where the Falcons are going to play the Colts. I find that a very interesting matchup, but we'll see how it goes. That's in week 10, so that's going to be later on down the line. We'll see if there's any playoff implications for any of these teams going into week 10. And then the Commanders, they round out the international games, playing the Miami Dolphins in Madrid, which I think is the first time in NFL history, in week 11. So you guys let me know down below what international game are you guys looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to, obviously, honorable mention, besides my Broncos versus the Jets, I actually am looking forward to that, that Vikings Browns game, because that Vikings Brown game, you got JJ McCarthy, the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see how he's progressed through the first 5 weeks of the season, and who knows who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns by week 5. Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders in week 5 and playing in London against the Minnesota Vikings? Will that be his first game as a Brown? That's probably the game I'm most excited for. And then obviously, that Commanders game is really going to look very exciting to me as well, too. Now, let's get into some of the primetime games as well, y'all. For our primetime games, we have 4 teams that have the most primetime games, one of them being the Kansas City Chiefs, which obviously is a no-brainer. They have 7. And then we have 3 teams tied with 6 primetime games. They're all in the NFC East, that being the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders, and the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, y'all. Which, seeing the Commanders, everyone wants to see Jaden Daniels. So let's kind of look at some of these primetime games. Starting off with week 1, you got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. That's always a treat to see. You got the Falcons versus Vikings in week 2, which will be an interesting one for sure. Kansas City. Now, this one is what really confuses me a little bit. You got Kansas City playing the New York Giants in week 3 in prime time. Now, for this game, who knows? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? Is it going to be Jameis Winston? Is Jackson Dart going to be able to get his first game action? So I don't know. I'm kind of curious why they picked Kansas City versus the Giants in a primetime game, but I'm not too fond of the Giants. And then you got the Packers versus the Dallas Cowboys in week 4. Let's see some other headliner ones. You got the Lions versus the Eagles in week 11. I think that's going to be a very exciting one. My Broncos, y'all. We have 2 primetime games. We have one in week 13 against we got Bo Nix leading the Broncos against the Commanders in week 13. Probably huge playoff implications for both teams heading into that game. Let's see. And honestly, like I said, you guys let me know which one you think is your most exciting one. If we look over to Monday Night Football, again, my Denver Broncos, they play on Monday night. This is probably a key one right here. It's a doubleheader feature that day on week 4. You got the Jets versus the Dolphins. Boom. But you also got my Broncos versus the Bengals. And if you guys don't remember, last time the Broncos and Bengals faced off, it was a thriller. It was a thriller of a game between these 2 teams. But if we look at some of these Monday night games, some ones that kind of poke out at me is this Commanders versus a Bears game, which is going to be in week 6, which is another doubleheader, which follow up the Bills and the Falcons as well. So that game is a game that I'm kind of eyeing on as well. We also got the Commanders versus the Chiefs in week 8. So like I said, y'all, we got a lot of Jaden Daniels hype. We got a lot, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes. You can't leave him out of the spotlight for too long. And then another one that probably could have a lot of playoff implication as well is probably later on in week 17. We have the Atlanta Falcons versus the LA Rams. So who knows? Maybe these 2 teams will be battling out probably for the respective division or even for just to fight for that 7th or 6th playoff spot. So now let's look at some of the revenge games and rematches that will be headlining the NFL season. So in week 9, we got Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, an AFC Championship rematch from last year. This is going to be the 10th matchup between these 2 teams. I think Josh Allen has, I think it is the 10th one, I believe. Josh Allen has Patrick Mahomes' number in the regular season. It's just the playoffs that Josh Allen and it's not Josh Allen's fault by any means. It's the defense kind of crumbles when they play Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and playoff Pat is a completely different animal than regular season Pat, but we'll see if that witchcraft that the black magic that the Kansas City Chiefs had all last season, if it's gonna roll over into this season. So we have a revenge game as well, y'all. In week 7, we have Russell Wilson versus the Denver Broncos in week 7. Now, it's not a revenge game for Russ by any means. I feel like it's more of a revenge game for the Denver Broncos for highway robbery. That man robbed us, okay? That man robbed us for 2 years. And, we're paying, everything's going smooth and peaches and rainbows for us now. But, is he, will he be healthy for week 7? 2, is he actually going to be the starter? So it's like, because last time we played a Russell Wilson led team, he was out. It was week 2 last year against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was out. And we played Justin Fields, where we lost against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. Which, that game stung, y'all. That game stung. And that was Bo Nix, one of Bo Nix's early struggles as a quarterback. Another revenge game rematch. We got the Super Bowl rematch in week 2 versus the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Will the Kansas City Chiefs, you guys let me know, will they avenge their Super Bowl loss in week 2? It's very early on. It's a very early on Super Bowl rematch, so there's not too much. It could be implications maybe later down the line, but not too much implications. And week 2 is probably a perfect spot for them because maybe both teams will be damn right healthy going into this game. And then with Nick Sirianni, he just signed a contract extension too. He has the second most wins as a NFL head coach with 54, and I think in their first 4 or 5 seasons or something like that. So he's a bona fide winner. So one of these teams are going to be, one of these teams won't be undefeated going into week 3. So, or who knows, maybe both teams might be coming off a loss. We can't tell so far. With the schedule being released, we're still ways away from the regular season. We got to let everything kind of just kind of go into effect, y'all. And then the last game, that highlights it is a revenge game, is the Steelers versus the Packers or Jets. And the reason why I say this, y'all, is because if Aaron Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he still hasn't signed with them. If he does, he will be playing his former teams, both the Green Bay Packers and the New York Jets. And then also, Justin Fields is going to be playing the Steelers regardless. So he's going to be having his revenge game against the Steelers. So, this is another revenge game kind of rematch or revenge game for sure for those 2 historic franchises, or 3, I guess. With all that, y'all, I do want to give my top 5 most anticipated games heading into the NFL 2025 regular season. Honorable mentions. Like I said, we got the Broncos versus Commanders in that Monday Night Football game. We got the Bears versus Commanders in a Monday Football game as well in week 6. Another most anticipated game, and it's not the game itself, but it's more so Travis Hunter's first NFL career game. I'm very excited for that. It is who do the Jags play week 1? Let's see. Let me see, y'all. Let me see. Who are the Jags playing week 1? I should have had this up. They're playing the Carolina Panthers. So we get to see Travis Hunter versus Teterono McMillan, and against Bryce Young in that offense. And then on the defensive side, J.C. Horn's gonna be guarding Travis Hunter. So we're gonna see. I'm kind of excited for that game for sure. That's an honorable mention. And then obviously the Ravens versus Chiefs in week 4. It's always a treat to see Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes. But that rounds out my honorable mentions. But let's get into my top 5 most anticipated games, y'all. Starting off with number 5, we have the Bengals versus the Broncos in week 4. Yes, I'm a little biased with this pick. I'm sure you probably might think there's other suitable. Maybe those honorable mentions could be squeezed into the top 5. But I got Bengals versus Broncos in week 4. Again, if you guys remember last year, huge playoff implications in late in the season when the Broncos and Bengals faced off. It went into overtime. Bo Nix had a spectacular game-tying, touchdown with 6 seconds left in the game to send the game into overtime. And then in overtime, Denver just kind of went stagnant on offense. I don't know what the hell we were doing on offense. Our defense was playing lights out. Jamar Chase could not get free of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Surtain the second, excuse me. He couldn't get free of him. The defensive player of the year, he had that. I think that game really solidified him, even though they lost that game. I think the Broncos versus the Bengals, that game right there last year solidified him as the defensive player of the year. Albeit T. Higgins, he had a career game that year, that game as well. But that's probably my most anticipated game of the season. At number 5. Now at number 4. We have the Lions versus the Ravens in week 3. Now the Lions, they had a NFL high 15 wins last season, y'all. 15 wins. They had one of the most explosive, exciting offenses you could see in the NFL. The Detroit football is back, y'all. Dan Campbell has his team riding high and riding hot going into this regular season, y'all. You got guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, you got Jared Goff and all them, Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, all those guys for Detroit Lions, versus a very high power Ravens offense led by obviously Lamar Jackson, who should have been the 3-time MVP. Again, that's just my personal opinion. And then with Derrick Henry and stuff like that. So, seeing I think it's gonna be a high scoring game, both teams are gonna, probably shoot the lights out with probably 30 plus points from each team. So that week 3 game, Lions versus Ravens, that round, that's number 4 for me. Now, number 3, y'all, and I was kind of, like I said, and for this one, it's more so, like I said, it is impactful because of the players that are in it. My number 3 most anticipated game is going to be in week 3, actually, the Minnesota Vikings versus the Cincinnati Bengals. As you can kind of see, the Bengals are kind of clogging up this list, because you got former LSU teammates, college roommates, all that playing against each other. You got Justin Jefferson on the Vikings on the offensive side with JJ McCarthy. Hopefully by week 3 we'll kind of have some kind of idea of what kind of quarterback JJ McCarthy is, versus the proven Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Now, this too could be an offensive shootout, or could it just be we'll see where this goes, because we got to see where the Bengals defense kind of goes in terms of them, because if they are able to improve, that'll help out Joe Burrow a lot. Let's hope both teams are healthy by week 3. Of course, like I said, this is early on, AFC versus NFC matchup, AFC North versus NFC North. You know what I'm saying? We'll really see where this game will head. So at number 3, I got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Cincinnati Bengals. At number 2, y'all, and this, like I said, these two players have played each other 10 times or 9 times up to this point, and this 10th time will always be a treat, and you always get a great game out of these two players. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. That is my number 2 most anticipated game of the season. That's coming in week 9, so that is a little late. That's like midway through the season. There is playoff implications that could arise later on. Whoever wins this game, I believe, will probably have home field advantage going into the playoffs, between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think also for the Buffalo Bills, I think they're the only team, and I think it's the first time in NFL history, I could be wrong, but that the Buffalo Bills are favored in every single game this year. So I don't know what the line is and how much they're favored for in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't really look into that stuff in terms of for betting and all that. I don't really bet, but they are favored to win in every single game this year, and it looks like they're favored to win against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 9. Again, you could be looking at 2 loss teams going up against each other to really solidify their spot at that number 1 seed in the AFC going into week 9. And for my number 1 most anticipated game of the season, we're rounding it off. It's a week 1 game, so it's early on. It's one of the first games of the season, the first Sunday night game of the NFL season, being the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. Again, you have Lamar Jackson, who constantly struggles in the playoffs against this Buffalo Bills team, and against Josh Allen in general. So you got, like I said, it's 2 high-power offenses with Josh Allen leading the helm in Buffalo, and then with Lamar Jackson leading the helm in Baltimore. So you have these 2 teams going back and forth in week 1. I like that it's early on, week 1. Again, you can't put too much at stake in week 1. You probably will have 2 fully healthy teams going into this game as well. It's probably going to be a sluggish fest because, every week 1 game, you got the gears are kind of rusty for these teams. So just that Bills game versus the Ravens. Obviously, again, I said the Bills are favored in every single game this season. I'm sure they're favored against the Baltimore Ravens as well. Is it in Buffalo? Do you know? No.
Let's see. It's Buffalo hits the road to meet the Baltimore.
Oh, it's on the road, and they still got them favorites too. But like I said, both teams will hopefully be, barring anything crazy happening in OTAs and minicamp, preseason, whatever. hopefully the both teams are completely healthy by week 1. So this is my most anticipated game of the year. I want you guys to let me know down below, what are your top 5 most anticipated games going into the 2025 season? Would you change anything on my list? Do you think I should just bump the Broncos out because you guys are just fucking Bronco haters or something? But I'm talking about you, Jaron. Jaron, if you're listening right now, brother, you see how I didn't put the Raiders as I didn't even mention the Raiders, because like I said, I think the Raiders are gonna win like maybe 4 or 5 games this upcoming season. Don't hold me to it though. Make sure to get ready to bet that money with me though, Jaron. So I just want you to know, the Broncos are getting the brooms out again to sweep your goddamn Raiders. And all my Chargers fans, be on the lookout too, because guess what? Denver's coming, and they're coming hot. They're coming. They are coming. Pause. With all that being said, though, y'all, this is gonna wrap up this week's episode of This Week in Sports with me. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Like I said, let me know what you guys think down below. Keep on subscribing, keep on liking. Please share with your friends and family as well. Tune in for game 1 tonight between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the OKC Thunder. Obviously for the Pacers and Knicks, that's tomorrow night as well. So, and like I said, I'll be back here next week and we'll talk many more things about the NBA, and we'll get into some more NFL stuff that I missed this week as well. So have a good one, y'all.